Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Let's go.
Welcome back, traders. I am
I wake up to a
so
little-
glad to be back. I hope you guys all had a bang up holiday weekend. MLK Junior Day markets were closed, but now we are coming back with a vengeance this Tuesday. As you can see, IWM hit another all-time high last week, right? And you've had a very nice continuation in bullish candlestick formations here after you broke out of this micro wedge. And beyond that, right, you saw back-to-back all-time high weeks. So IWM looks very bullish, but we'll break that down in 1 second. Looking at stock market, finally dipping your toes into the greed zone on the Fear and Greed Index. In the stock market for the first time all year. Crypto still staying in fear at 32. Pretty shocking stuff. But in case you guys are new, we're going to go over our meme stock index, IWM, and how it correlates to AMC, GameStop, NEO, whatever the like, right? All the beautiful stocks that we anticipate to make some pretty crazy runs going into this extension on IWM. Because once this thing runs, guys, which it's currently doing, you see a lot of these short squeeze scenarios take place with the short interest on GME sitting at 16.9%, days to cover 17.46, ever growing, right? That's continuing to grow. Short interest on GME, 20%, highest I've seen it in the last 3 years, guys. That is very important. Days to cover staying relatively low, but that is because your volume on AMC is so heavy right now at the all-time low, right? But let's dip our toes into IWM here a little bit further, right? On the weekly chart, you see a breakout of this micro falling wedge. What does that mean? Well, that means up, right? That means boom, boom candles. And that is exactly what you got, seeing a 5% run and then 2% run. What I don't like here on IWM, and what I think is a little bit of a precaution for a breather here before you see a further upside run, is you see a little bit of volume here delaying the inevitable. And when you go to the daily, you can see Friday's close was a little bit of hesitation here, right? And now that you've made this pretty crazy extension out of the wedge, you have 2 gaps below you. So whether or not you just go back to fill the one or you fill both, I do believe IWM is set here for a little bit of hesitation with this red doji, oftentimes signaling, right? Red doji candle meaning often signaling that the bulls are running out of firepower, and that it typically means indecision. Let's go over to red, indicates the closing price slightly lower, reflecting the market indecision and potential bearish sentiment, right? So no surprise after seeing such a gargantuan run off of this bullish hammer candle we called out, 9% on an index. That is freaking amazing if you guys were tagging along. So slap the subscribe button because we are dropping these every single day. All right, now, yes, you see the gap sitting slightly below you, sitting at 263 and then 249. So those are your levels to watch. Now, on the weekly time frame, let's go into trading view for this. This is going to be very important. So pay attention, all you silly chickens out there. We're going to go over what I believe is going to occur on IWM in the macro picture, because that's what matters. On IWM, and then we'll get into GameStop and AMC. I pinky swear. But I will tag a timestamp along for you guys that are degenerates and don't really care. On IWM, you have just entered your daily bull zone for the first time since back here in July of 2025, and then back here in November, before you saw a gap up run on IWM of 5% on the day. Just disgusting stuff. But that does give me reason to believe that you might be topping out here before making a little bit of a pullback in this parallel channel. However, on the macro, right, you have an inverse head and shoulders. And once you broke that neckline, ladies and gentlemen, you ran pretty crazy, pretty crazy. You're already up 15%, but you ran 10% before scaling back to retest your neckline and you've now seen that bounce. So in case you guys are unaware, that's my watch. I love Casios. Shout out to all my Casio wearers out there. This is your profit target from your inverted head and shoulders, right? So you have the full extension of the shoulder, head, shoulder with the breakout of the neckline, the retest. They don't make them much more pitch perfect than this. And once you take that and put it on top of the retest, that takes you almost exactly to the candle wick of 306 on IWM. And where am I getting 306? Now, I could definitely draw it a little bit better here, right? Just a tad bit. But that is your topping formation, your double top, whatever you want to call it, from the 2021 meme craze squeeze into this rounding formation. Now, that is what gives you potentially, right, your top for 2026 or 2027. But what you're going to have to see, and it's not going to be a straight line like this, right? You have so much room to chop in this zone, but what you want to see is rates continue to come down and liquidity flow into the stock market once again. And oftentimes in the fear and greed index, stock market is absolutely bumping. But you want to see crypto get out of this fear and greed territory, this fear territory specifically, because that will bode positively in terms of risk on asset sentiment for GME. So now we're looking at GameStop, and you can see here on GameStop a beautiful falling wedge. In fact, you can't make a much more pitch perfect than this one. And when you look at this falling wedge, you can see it started back in May of 2025. And you can see that you now have your point of control established on GameStop at $28. You have some good bullish momentum from Friday, even though it was a red day. And when I pull this trend line, you can see you broke it. You saw a little bit of a move, 2%. I know, craziness on GameStop. And in doing so on this pullback, you actually filled the gap you left back at 291 or 2091. What I do anticipate to happen is maybe you see this bullish flicker of hope into that a high 21 to low 22 zone, thinking that you're going to break out of this falling wedge, which you could. Right? But you need to see volume step in here if you want to see that kind of crazy break right back up to 28. But what I anticipate to happen is something a little bit more of the lines of this, right? You tap your head on the trend line, volume is low, and then IWM takes a pullback, right? And then you make your bullishly divergent low, and then you're off to the races. And I think that because every beautiful run for this stock has been marked by bullish divergence on the RSI, and I'll show you why, right? Let's just take a quick little look on the RSI, a little peeky weeky, and you have bullish div today. So that's why I say it is very possible on GameStop that you could break out here. It's possible, but I don't think it's likely. I'd like to see a third test of the downsloping support on this channel or on this wedge, and then another touch of bullish divergence on the daily, which would be the stock price goes lower, you mid-19s, right, which is an absolute steal. And then the RSI peels back here, makes a higher low, and then we go to Valhalla, guys. I'll give you another example of when that happened on a run that we all know about, right? So on the daily time frame, you had an inverted head and shoulders. I will zoom in a little bit more. Shoulder, head, shoulder. This was before your May and June squeeze back in 2024. And listen closely, right? You made technical lower low or equal low between these two bottoms. But your RSI ever so slightly made a bullishly divergent higher low, which absolutely sent you out of your bottom into your right shoulder, and bam, the rest is history. Roaring Kitty came back. Another good example is this right here. Or even this. This on the macro is significant bullish div. Let me find it right here. Lower low. higher low. And when this played out, same way in AMC, right? You saw buyers step in. It was oversold to all get out. And then this thing ran to Pluto. I'll give you one more example, and it's the most important one. So once again, stay tuned. August of 2019, before your all-time crazy squeeze, right? Not MOAS, but your all-time crazy squeeze. You saw bullishly divergent RSI, higher low on the RSI, lower low on the price, sprung you, and then you ran. Now, today, you have bullish div. So that's what I'm saying. It's very possible you break out here. I just don't think it's likely, given the volume, given the formation of what you're in. I think you still have to visit the belly of the beast, tap this, one more low, and then you freaking spring. And why do I think that 28 is the point of control? Well, you go over to your trusty VRVP, your visible range volume profile, which it is not going to allow me to do. So let's try this one. And it will give you pretty much to the T. If I zoom out here, this one's a little wonky. This one's a little wonky. Nah, I broke it. We've run it before. Check your VRVP. $28 on this macro schematic is your point of control, and at the least is your previous high that you need to break before confirming this as a bullish breakout of the macro picture, right? And if you want to tap back into this parallel channel that you were in for a year, you failed to break above 28, failed to break back into the parallel channel, and now you need like crazy volume, right? You need buyers to step in here, get you back into the channel. Maybe you reject higher low, and then you go back to the 40s. And that is what I'm waiting for on GameStop. Now, why it happens, who knows? Fundamentals, whatever it may be. We're on Kitty, but that is your look. And when you go to the monthly, guys, not many people are talking about this. Cantonese Cat mentions it on Twitter. I freaking love that guy. He is an absolute G. Let's do a spot check. Don't mind that. Okay, we're still rocking and rolling. Cantonese Cat, absolute G on Twitter. I'd recommend you follow him. But Bollinger Bands on the monthly time frame, guys, the tightest they have been since 2017. That's a big deal, right? That is a big deal. And what happens when the Bollinger Bands are tight is it oftentimes acts as a range for price to trade into. You have your mid band currently sitting at $25, your top band sitting at $30. When they are this tight, it is predicting the end of a trading range and a volatile ending at that. It does not give you the direction, so we could totally come down here, double bottom, $10. It would be outrageous value, but it's possible. But we're the tightest since this September 24 and then September or June 2017 range. And I have that highlighted by this vertical bar, right? And you saw crazy movement to the downside before making your bottom bullishly divergent and then running up. Now, only God knows what the future has in store, but I do genuinely believe that the future looks bright and the best is yet to come on GameStop stock, given the fundamentals and given IWM potentially going to the freaking moon at $300. So I think that bodes well for that. AMC, let's jump right into it. Thank you guys for staying this long. Slap the subscribe button if you love me. If not, you hate me. It's okay. AMC has been in a parallel channel as well, but still remains inside of it. Every single time, and I want to highlight this for you guys, every single time AME has tapped the bottom of this parallel channel, you've gone to the top. Tapped the bottom, gone to the top. You've now tapped the bottom, and you've put in a doji or a shooting star candle on higher volume. Now, although I don't love this hesitation here from bulls, especially after such a strong candle, hammer candle, and a big bounce off of this low, I do believe inevitably if you can get back above the 9-day EMA, sitting at 190 traders, that you're going to revisit the top of this channel, sitting at $2 to $2.16, $2.15, wherever you hit this, right? And I think that that's going to be one of your more important tests because I assume, right, nothing goes straight up unless you're this candle, right? 51% weak. But I'd assume you trade up and to the right, you tap this channel, and what's going to happen is you're retesting your previous all-time low. And if you reject that, I think you're going to swing down here and make one more low, which sucks. That blows, right? No one wants to hear that, but it's possible. And I just want to highlight that anything is possible on this stock at this current moment in this current juncture. So it's going to be very important how you close next week and take this on a week by week basis for AMC. Let's jump into the daily time frame and look at some of that. So you closed above the 9-day EMA on the 1-day time frame. Now that's bullish for short-term continuation, and you've established this very valid uptrend, which I assume is going to act as that up and to the right momentum, right? So jumping into Amy, I want to go over to TradingView. I typed in Amy. That's so funny. Oh my God, the amount of lines on this chart is unholy. All right, daily time frame. Let's run it. So you have a daily Bollinger Band squeeze, which is a good sign, but we're not focused on that. Let's just jump right out of the Bollinger Bands right now. On the daily time frame. You have an inverted hammer candlestick, which is bullish, genuinely is bullish, and a little bit of this shoulder formation. So theoretically, if that is the case, that's your neckline, that's your breakout, takes you straight into that $2 retest, which is your previous all-time low. So I like that technical confluence. Let's go to the monthly time frame. A big, fat, bullish, spinning top candle. Very interesting. However, I want to talk about the downside projection if you do not hold that parallel channel. And that is one that I believe would be a crazy opportunity and a potential squeeze starter, because every single time you've tapped this trend, right? Casual 100%. Tapped it here. Casual 283%. Didn't tap it here, but from the low, 2,000%. Tapped it here. Casual 375%. And now you have the opportunity, AMC bulls, to potentially strike along with a risk to reward of 15% to potentially, right, whatever percent to the upside it may be. But I do believe, I really like the percentage gain risk to reward here. And I would say not financial advice, right? But only put in what you're willing to lose and genuinely take a long-term mindset with it, even though your AMC short interest is absolutely jacked to the nips, right? Absolutely beautiful stuff, because you haven't seen that on Amy for quite some time. But take a long-term approach to this, because if you don't see a squeeze, you are in for a more macro turnabout in which you look to change the profitability and the debt hanging above this company in the span of the next 5 years, right? But there are signs of life for this stock, and there are genuine reasons to be excited on the daily chart. Go to the gap fills, guys. Go to the gap fills. You have one at 13, 19, and 43, in which they most of the time do fill. Of course, you're at 140, so it's a long way. It's a very long way. But some also genuine good news is your 200-day EMA has come all the way down, guys. This was our original thesis on Amy, is that your 200-day EMA would break, and that signals to buyers that the macro has flipped. Sitting at 298, 279. Sorry, dyslexia. You have not been and closed above this since 2022. And truthfully, you have not gotten a golden cross, which I would be watching for and absolutely foaming at the mouth to see a golden cross on AME, which you saw last in 2021 during the squeeze, bounced off of the golden cross, and then you had a gamma squeeze up to $300. We all know 72, right? But yeah, that's what we're looking for on AMC. Still wanting to see this bottoming formation occur. And I think once it does, guys, up, because IWM is going to take these things higher inevitably, undoubtedly, in my opinion, not financial advice. But that's what I got for you guys. Let's see how the next week plays out. God bless each and every single one of you guys. And remember, the best is yet to come. Much love and subscribe.